my baby, she done left me alone. Said I was a no good and head out on the road. She ain't gonna see me cry, ain't gonna see me shed no tear. No. Why would I cry?
What is going on? What is happening, folks?
That operator praises me, he praises my name. He's been working overtime since you went away.
Very first daytime of Sales Tales. So I was in this house. Well, what a week it's been. Took a week off. Really got some good R&R in. Went away. Hope everybody had a good Memorial Day. And man, do I have some guests coming up. I'm like, I got people coming out of the woodwork. It's pretty cool. I wanted to address something really quickly, just so we kind of get it, out of the way. And so everybody knows. So this week I resigned my post at my position as a leader at the company that I was at, and because everybody's asking me anyway, and I am starting a new endeavor. I'm very excited about this. It's lucrative and incredible, and I'm very excited about the opportunity. So that's that. Very excited about the whole thing and really excited to be moving on. And now, without further ado, I have a guest here who I met through an in-home sales forum that he is the admin for, because he created the group, and he is a lifer, and the guy is brilliant. I've seen some of this guy's posts. I've seen some of his work. He has a coaching and training company, and he trains with this doctor, and he's got a great mindset coach. And so I really enjoyed a lot of what he's got to offer. Super successful. He runs North America for a very large company that everybody sort of has heard of before. I will bring him on here, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Joe Downey. Joseph Downey.
How are you?
Sir? Very good.
How's that? I gotta Venmo you some cash for that intro, my friend.
Yeah, buddy.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
I just got done talking to you for 20 minutes. You didn't tell me anything about you leaving your current post.
Yeah. I got a really, really, really incredible opportunity to really, make something happen. And be a part of a great organization that has some incredible potential. And it just worked for me and my family and everything else. So I'm really excited about it. Yeah.
Heck yeah, man.
Yeah.
What do you want to talk about?
Well, that's the beauty of this. Beauty is this: is we talk about whatever we want to talk about.
I like it.
So why don't you do this, man? Since most people, so a lot of the guests I have on here are in the like HVAC plumbing world.
Awesome.
A lot of people do not know who you are. So why don't you start with, who is Joe Downey? What's your background? Why should anybody care about listening to you? All that stuff.
Cool. Yeah, no, that's I appreciate that. I'll just do the whole really for the industry. So I've been in-home sales, primarily home improvements, both exteriors and then interiors, a little bit of everything, actually, product-wise, since 2007. So I was probably like a lot of people, I don't know your age, but like a lot of people started off in the mortgage industry during the boom. And then, yeah, there you go. See? So I had a longtime friend of mine who owned a company and ran a company and in the exterior space. And it was as the market was crashing, July of 2007. And we were personal friends. So we were actually fishing together. And he's like, if you pick up that phone one more time, I'm gonna throw the phone overboard. And I mean, my phone's blowing up. I got deals. I mean, literally, as you know, banks were pulling out funding the day of. I mean, it was the mess. So, and I just was miserable. I wasn't enjoying fishing. I didn't even really like what I was doing anyway, other than obviously a lot of people were in it for the money. So he's like, why don't you come work for me? And I was like, selling home improvements? I didn't even own a home. Maybe I did, but I'm still in probably hairy homeowner in most cases. So so he taught me the business. Spent a couple years out on the road carrying a bag into the home there, and then moved into leadership there. And I've worked between that company and then another one was probably two of the top 5 on the we look at like a top 500 list for home remodelers. Both those companies land in those categories still today. And then I branched out and got into basically the one-day bath and in leadership in that side. So I actually don't, which is good. I'm glad you said it. I don't have a coaching or consulting with the mindset. It's everything that I talk about and use with that. I just use it with my own team and train.
Okay. Oh, yeah. So you don't do private coaching. You just use the mindset coaching with your team. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Very cool.
Yeah. No, there's plenty of people out there that are way better. I get asked to speak quite a bit. So that long bio I sent you about it, just really more to speak. But I mean, anybody that ever reaches out to me, I give them, what I believe to help them and send them on their way. If they want to continue to talk, I'm happy to. And that's the whole point of the page, that In-Home Sales Pro. That's just me, if you want to say, I don't know, giving back. And
yeah, I think it's the most applicable page. So I'm a part of a lot of these different pages and groups, and I noticed that like some of them are really helpful, and some of them have become just like, what's the best word for it? Like, it's just
spam?
I don't even want to say that. It's like almost like it's become a loudspeaker for people who not just are selling something, but for people who have a strong opinion one way or another about something, and they go in there, and it's a bunch of these groups, and they all, it's like some of it's trying to sell you stuff, some of it's not trying to sell you stuff, but then it's like, I've got a really strong opinion about this, and I'm going to pound and then it's like, beating on your chest, and it's just so unproductive. But your group, the in-home sales, and it's really just in-home sales professionals group. That's all it is. And I saw, and you have about 1,500 members, but it's active members. People are active in the group. People contribute in the group, and it's not necessarily just geared towards one industry or another, which I really like.
Yeah, I mean, it's it's the cool part is, out of the 1,500 members, I mean, there's no, I'm the admin, so I see everybody that comes through. Like, I mean, I think we've had a few, like, I would consider spam or bots, or if you will, but I mean, they're all pretty active. A lot of them I know, but now that's gotten to the size that it has, I'm sure, like you experience, it's like, I kind of know them through social media, but I don't really know them. And then the last time I checked, I think there's 9 or 10 trades technically represented. One of my good friends is HVAC. He's less than 2 years in the business. He's just he's actually a fishing buddy. He's in the group. So I'll have to connect him over to you, because I know it's, he's definitely, he's more from the actual doer side of the HVAC than the seller side. So I know that's one of the reasons he got into our group, was just to kind of get a gist of, what it's like and to sell on the home. So
I don't often get, so a lot of people that have been on here, specialize in sales specifically. I haven't had too many leaders on here like myself who run sales teams. So it'd be really interesting from your perspective to hear some of the stories that you have in regards to managing people, and also managing the things that they're doing in houses. And also there's a ton there, recruiting. And so I'd be interested to hear some experiences you've had through the years in leadership, that stand out to you as being, very interesting?
How about my most recent, when you say recruiting, I just was talking to one of our leaders in one of our markets the other day, and he had a young 21-year-old cat fresh out of college, maybe, show up to the interview with his parents.
No way.
For a sales role. And it's like many are one call close. I mean, you imagine what the role is, right? I mean, it's not, yeah. And it's weird how things happen though, but I saw an article less than a month ago about this being a issue with, I don't even know what generation it is. What is
Gen
it?
Z.
Z.
Or it might be whatever the generation is after that.
Yeah.
But I think it's Gen Z. 21 would be Gen Z.
That's so weird. I mean,
so that's crazy, bro. I was like a freaking dad at 21.
Yeah.
Now, of course, I started early, but hey, you know what though? I sure as hell wasn't going to interviews with my mom and dad. Holy smokes.
Sat out.
That's, you know what though? That's our fault. That's our fault.
It's a disaster.
It is. It is our fault. Like you're a Gen X, Xennial, something like that, right? Like it's our fault. Like now, I don't want to say it's Gen Xers in general because but I will say it's whoever is. No, it's probably the generation right before us, I guess. Either way, it's the adults. Okay, it's the adults in the room. Okay, because somebody didn't teach their kid. Oh, and by the way, when you go out to a job interview, you don't bring your parents.
Yeah. So
maybe in the waiting room, right? Maybe you brought somebody like, hey, I was on my way somewhere and I got him. It's fine. He'll wait out here. But you're saying he brought him to the, so dad could sit there as an advocate and be like, well, you really should hire my son. Yeah.
Yeah. I thought they were joking with me. And then I was like, wait up. And I remember seeing the Forbes article, maybe a month or two ago, that this was becoming a thing. They're hiring managers they were surveying. And I was like, that's crazy.
That is crazy.
Yeah. Needless to say, it didn't, it didn't pan out.
No, it wouldn't. Yeah. Why would it?
I don't know. Maybe his parents were going to drive him around to the leads too. I have no idea.
Yeah. Listen, we'll drop you off at the leads. You know, it's funny when we first got into in-home sales, I remember I was out with my buddy, Russell Anthony, and Russell was like, I remember getting like texted, like it was late. Like, I had never been in in-home sales before and I was training. So I was on the road. This is 15 years ago. And I'm doing like, I'm in the house. And it was a nice house, nice neighborhood in New Jersey. And I remember getting all these text messages and it was my wife. And I was like, she's like asking me like, when are you coming home? What's going on? Blah, blah, blah. And Russell just turns to me. He's like, and Russell's like the nicest guy. He's got like, he's like the best husband. He just turns to me. He's like, brother, he's like, if you're going to be in this industry, you're going to have to cut that out immediately. Like you are not going to be home. You are not going to be home at night. Like it is not going to happen. You are going to be in a house. You're going to be on a sales call. You better just let her know now. Let her know now. Like this is not that industry. You will not be home for dinner. Sometimes you will be, but
Yeah. I lost a young lady I dated for, serious enough, I would consider it. And same thing. I didn't bring my phone into the home. So I'll give you a hint, and this sounds bad, but I started out with Nextels.
Yeah.
So we would do all of our communication on a two-way, like with the Nextels. So my personal phone stayed in the car.
Yeah.
And it was a long sit because I think it was first off, it was a 7 p.m. start, but I want to say it was like 3 products, windows, siding, maybe in like doors or roof. Like it was the whole boat.
Yeah.
And you get that vibe, right? And you're like, okay, I mean, they're receptive. I'm gonna run them up and down and back and forth and whatever. It takes what it takes. And by the time it was all said and done and paperwork, it could have been like 11, I don't know, whatever it was. But it's hilarious because the voicemails went from, hey, just checking in to, hey, haven't heard back. I had like 5. The final one was like, hey, we're done. I don't know who you're with, what you're doing. This is bullshit. I don't
what?
like, you know what I mean? I'm sitting there going, what are you talking? And then you just, you try to explain it, but
what?
Yeah.
You lost a relationship over in-home sales, dude. That's gangster.
Well, I mean, what are you going to do at that point? It reminds me of, was it Swingers, where he calls the girl too many times in the same night he met her, and she's like, "Look, don't call me again." that's how I was. I mean, her last voicemail was basically like, "Look, I can't do this." Like, she was, I guess, obviously very, I don't know, but
stage 5
like,
clinger. Stage 5 clinger.
Oh, yeah. And there's a couple of people that are going to watch this call that know exactly the story, and they actually still remember. So when we all got in the business, this has changed, I think. And I'm sure it depends on the market. So as I mentioned, a friend of mine got me into the industry. He 2 friends. One was the owner. The other one was the vice president of sales. And this company started off at, let's just say 5 million, and we shot to 100 quick. I mean, I shouldn't say quick, but one of the quicker ones to do it, if you will.
Yeah.
But that first like couple of years, one, I was on the road, but then also as a sales manager, the sales team, let's just say it was 20, predominantly guys, but we did have, I think, we always had about 1 or 2 females who actually were phenomenal, but they were a certain breed, if you will, right? Like they weren't the young lady calling me going, "Where the hell are you?" Right? They were, let's just say, you get my point. So they could hold their, but
I don't get your point, but I get your point.
Well, some of them are going to watch this, but I mean, they get, like, I had more problems as a manager. I had more problems with guys worried about going into homes than these 2 women in bad neighborhoods.
So we'll put it nicely. They were seasoned.
Yeah.
They were maybe a little rough around the edges.
100%.
And were strong, strapping ladies who could take care of themselves.
100%. And assassins in the home. That's another story. We'll talk about that.
By the way, there's 4 rules to this podcast, and one of the rules is if you're offended, you're the problem. So if somebody's listening to this and they're offended, they're the problem. That's a fact, by the way.
Yeah.
If you're offended, you're the problem. It's not us. We're having a good time. We're enjoying each other's good conversation. Okay. If you're offended, you're the problem.
I love it. So that first couple of years, I mean, I'll give you, this is how fun it was. So it was literally outside of, we were a fraternity. So here's how the day would go. Very few were married with children. That's what I mean. It's changed and it's fine. I totally respect all that.
Yeah, no.
Right?
Yeah, but hold on. I want to stop you right there because I know you're going to tell the story. But that sentiment makes so much sense to me because when I started in in-home sales, I think all the dudes were like divorced or like single and like didn't whatever. Here's the deal. Who is single and like we talked about it before, Gen Zs. Dude, I don't think these guys can sell a lick. I mean, half of them anyway. I mean, you train them. I'm not saying there's not young guys, millennials that can't sell. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that the pool of people to choose from that are young, that don't have families, right? Because a lot of people have families that you could choose from. Now you got, almost all the guys that I know in home sales in general are family guys.
Yeah.
And they make it work, right?
Yeah.
But back then, and you had a miserable marriage and miserable relationship, all this kind of stuff, and they've kind of made it work, right? But I think a lot of that has to do with communication. I think it has to do with the fact that, because if you were gone all day 20 years ago, okay, I mean, you had a cell phone, it sat in the truck or sat in the car, and then you went in the house, you were gone all day long, and then you were hungry afterwards, like you didn't get home. So like every day went, and you didn't even talk to your wife barely for like more than 15, 20 minutes or whatever it was. And it probably got to a point where you didn't, you know what I mean? But I think communication has kind of changed that. And I think cell phones have changed that. I think that how you get dispatched has changed because you have more time in between that you can be like, okay, I didn't get my call. I'm looking at my calendar or whatever it is. You have a dispatching software. So you're like, you're more in tune. You could do more with your time. Be like, okay, cool. I'm going to grab lunch with my wife. Whereas back in the day, you'd be like, no, I'm waiting around for a call. Like, I don't know, Yeah. Anyway, 100%. Go ahead. Yeah. Finish
100%. No, I think it's, so back then you're right. The couple of the old dogs were definitely divorced or just had understanding partners. So we'd run 3 leads a day. And then we would all, I mean, we were here in Maryland. You run Maryland, DC, and Northern Virginia as one market. But
Yeah.
What was so cool back then was like I was a referral came in. Like our sales team was built a lot on referral. So everybody knew each other. And we would go, you'd run a 6 p.m. or 7, whatever. By 10 o'clock, a majority of us were at the local bar in downtown Annapolis. Right? And then you'd party it hard and then get up and do it all over again. And I remember like our HR department was like one dude. When I left that company, the HR department was probably half the size of the sales team, right? Because we probably were a walking liability. I mean, it was such a fraternity.
That's cool,
and you're
man.
just like, holy crap, but it was so much fun. There wasn't, like you said, there wasn't this worry around the reason why I know the story about that. Well, I mean, I know a lot of all of our hires, how they come through our system now, but like when the sales manager called me a week ago to tell me about his parents being there, he was actually calling me going, hey, what can I do? Like, I don't want to get in trouble because I'm like,
yeah,
I don't know. You know what I mean? So it's just changed. And you're right. I'm not saying what we did back then was the right move. I mean, guys eventually got married and run on, but God, it was fun, man. And you talk about a culture of, I mean, it was every night. We just meet at the bar. And matter of fact, I'll never forget the guy who owns the bar still does. He would write letters to the owner thanking us for paying his, lease every month.
You're really going down a path that I think probably needs to be talked about. And it's about, okay, so everything's become really litigious. Everything's become a policy or a procedure. Everything's become, and so, like running a cool sales organization has gone from like, yo, we party, we have a great time, we go out, we sell a lot of stuff, and we have a great time doing it, and blah, blah, blah. And it's really gone from that. And I think there's a lot of reasons for it. I think certain aspects of PE has done it, certain aspects of how litigious we are and the legalities of things, how people you're always worried about getting sued. Also, I mean, smartphones, man. I mean, it's like everything can be recorded. Everything is recorded. Everywhere you go, there's a camera. And you just, I'm not saying you couldn't go to the bar afterwards, because you certainly could. But I think a lot of that fun has been sucked out of it. Because I do remember way back in the day working for a couple of sales organizations, and it was the same thing, man. It was like, hey, we're gonna work hard, we're gonna play hard. And I think there's a few of us left. Like, no, I want to say a few of us, but we're old dogs now. Like you and I and that generation is, in the prime of our career now, but we're leading teams for the most part, or we have a lot more to lose, right?
Yeah.
Like we've got a lot more to lose. So you're right. It has been sucked out of it. And I think that, social media has a lot to do with that. I mean, you're right, but it begs for a different question. I'll ask you this.
Yeah.
So culture, right? You have the right to run an organization how you see fit, correct? So what is your opinion on culture in the workplace today, culture in the workplace yesterday, and overall, how statistics, metrics, KPIs, all this stuff has influenced or affected the way that leaders now coach, train, harbor culture, etc. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's something I battle with personally all the time, because I find myself, I was brought in the way I was brought in. And, now there's obviously a lot of shifts. I mean, you can't go to a bookstore where you don't find a book around business culture and the importance of it. Where I think it's a balance between, obviously, where I struggle with it is making sure that, let me back up. where I personally misunderstood it was you sacrifice culture for high performance, right? Like a hardcore sales org, right? Like just go, 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 go. And then and this is how I used to, and this wasn't right. And then culture was like the soft skill or the softness of the thing. And I was like, man, that's not right. So then it's trying to find that balance. I'm telling you, it's something I battle with every day. Because here's what I've learned. I'm sure other people will say this. My father taught me this, and it wasn't his line by any stretch of the imagination, but he owned his own business for years. And he said, look, if everybody loves you, watch out, because you're going out of business. And and what he was getting at, and my father carried himself with way more integrity than I can attest to for myself sometimes. And he's like, you're not going to make everybody happy. And from that standpoint, so that part's a balancing act. I think the critical missing link starts at the hiring, right? And what I mean by that is you have your culture already established for your business. If you don't set the proper expectation when you're hiring of what that culture is, and you don't stand your ground on what that culture is, good, bad, and different, it doesn't make a difference, and you bring in somebody to that culture that doesn't jive, then you don't have a culture. You got to really, you have to stand your ground on what it is. So when you're doing that interview or you're going through that, you have to set those expectations. And you can't deviate from it. So, and that's around from, here's the other thing. Let me take it one more step further. Let's take it a step further in terms of my biggest pet peeve in businesses, all businesses. You go into a local business, whatever, family-owned establishment, doesn't make a difference. But, let's just say our line of work. And you see on the wall the list of the 15 core values of that business. Drives me up a wall. One, if I know them and I know they don't live up, can you take that off the wall? Throw it in the trash can, light it on fire, and pee on it? But then I'll take it a step further with my team. I like to keep things simple, and I always attribute this to my father because my father was not involved in any of the tech we have today. So sometimes I wonder where he learned this from because he never talked about it with me until he was dying, unfortunately. But he's like, you need 2 values. Do your absolute best and do the right thing. All those other 15, integrity, trustworthiness, that all falls under that. And I just remember looking at him one day going, when did you become John Maxwell? My father was as blue collar as they come. There wasn't any of the stuff that we have out of it. He didn't even know how to email before he passed. I don't think he even knew what it meant. So it was like, wow, how did you, and that's just from flat out experience. So, but I think, guys, I think you have to nail it down, and without getting all, again, I'm sure there'll be some gurus that listen to this that say, oh, this, that, or the other. I don't think you can force it. I think your original team builds it, just like we were talking about the original team we had back in 2007. We created that culture, which was high performance, go 100 miles an hour. We bled that company. We walked into the house. I'll never forget this. We walked into the house with that logo on our chest. There was a sense of pride. I don't see that as much anymore. Right?
No.
So
you don't see that as much anymore.
I know we kind of danced around a lot of different topics there, but it's something I battle with all the time. Some days I want to pick up the phone and go, and then I go, oh, that's not right. Or that's not going to work. So it's finding that balance.
Yeah. You touched on a couple things there, but it was all the same sort of thing. Let me give you something that I struggled with, but I know I'm very clear on it right now. Okay. And it was actually a friend of mine, he was on this podcast, that had said something and it brought me down into a hole where I was like, oh, okay, this makes sense. I had brought up a sentiment about how in today's day and age, when we are such a metric driven, spreadsheet driven, Power BI, whatever you want to say, whatever it is, Service Titan, whatever you're using, whatever software you're using, you're sitting there and you're looking and you're managing your business by the metrics, as you should, fine. I can look at the metrics and I can say, okay, such and such is not closing at a good percentage. He's got a bad average ticket. His revenue per lead is bad. It looks like he's not giving its all. We can see this on paper. We have to go help coach this guy, right? Okay. Now, there's a difference between managing by the metrics, right? And managing your company by nothing but the metrics. Like, in other words, like, I can say all the KPIs in the world, hey, you're not getting the KPIs done. You're not actually making enough follow-up phone calls, et cetera, et cetera. Fine. But people produce the results. And that's why I talk a lot about culture, because great companies with great culture foster the results that they want, because people want to work in those places. People want to work for people that they like, trust, that they believe in. They want to work for. Do you think that if you believe in a company, don't you think that if you sent a sales rep to that house, that they're going to have more of a sense of pride of where they work from, and they're going to have a better transfer of belief? And what is sales? Yeah. A transfer of belief. Good old Zig Ziglar, right?
Yeah.
So it's like simple, but we as an industry, we have forgotten how to do this. We are so driven by AI and the metrics. We have stopped. We realize actually we're going backwards. We're going backwards in success. We should be taking care of our people more in such a world that is so inhuman, that the technology has taken over our lives, that we should be doing more team building events. We should be doing more. And it doesn't have to be expensive stuff, man. You just have to treat your players as players, right? And yeah, you got to bench guys sometimes. You got to move them off the roster. Not everybody hits. That's a part of the game. But man, you take care of your people. And so I have been on this tear now for like months now, where I have just been trying so hard to try and instill the culture. And look, it's harder now because we can't do all the crazy shit we used to do, right? But we can still do something. Do something. And so this piece is missing. And I think that the great leaders, the great managers, the great sales minds, they get their people swimming in the same direction because they foster amazing cultures. And it's so missed. It's so missed in this world of so much technology and so much it's overload. I mean, that's where I was trying to get at when I was saying, how do you balance the culture?
I'm glad you. So there's a couple of things. Let's dissect what you said, because I think it's awesome. So let me see how I want to start. Which part? So let's talk about the metrics. This is something that's really big on me, that I look at all the time. Is most of the metrics that we look at are results of something that is not in. If I'm a sales manager, most of the metrics that I look at for my rep I do not have direct control over. I have influence, but all I can do, think about, like you mentioned, coach, player. A coach cannot play the game, right? All I can do is make sure that I have my players prepared to execute. And then I have to trust that they do that. Okay. So when you look at what a lot of people would consider the result metrics, they're lagging one thing, right? They're in the past. It's done. What we've changed for our sales leaders, what I've implemented and really hound on, obviously we have to look at the results. But the thing that we actually influence, so we changed the scorecard, and we made our scorecards a little different than most. Yes, we have those things for the results. That's how we get paid, all that great stuff, that scoreboard. But I want to know, what are the activities that I, as a sales manager, need to be doing every day to help grow and develop my reps, to give me the best possibility or probability of having the end result that I need? So we actually keep a scorecard around how many ride-alongs, how many training one-on-ones did you have, whether it's a one-on-one for coaching or a one-on-one for accountability, two different types of one-on-ones in our world. That's what. So when I get that report up to me, I can look at the numbers anytime I want on my own. I don't need that. They should be aware of them, but I want to see, okay, what are you doing that you actually can control as a sales manager to help influence those results to get them to where you want, like you said. And we were on a call 2 weeks ago on the in-home side. Paul Atherton he's from the UK, man. He's awesome. Great episode. You check it out. But he talks about all the time, we don't coach. Now, I'll take it one step further. There is the problem where I will defend sales managers in some organizations, not all, is they're being bogged down with all these administrative duties that doesn't, right? And one of my good friends, I don't want to say his name because I don't want him to get mad at me for saying it. He got smart, and he has sales managers, and then he has admin or sales operations managers that are they're managers, but they're strictly admin, they're process, hey, this guy's paperwork's constant. And then the sales manager is responsible for the results. But that way it takes it all away from them.
I did that. Actually, I reorged the last company that I worked for. I reorged it, and I was the director of sales for this national wholesaler, pack, pick, and ship distributor. And there was the same thing. There was all this administrative nonsense, this clocky, punchy, inny, outy, all this nonsense that was not, because, there's two words in my title, right? Like sales and director, right? Yeah. Not, so anyway, reorged it, created a sales and operations manager role, put a perfect individual into that role. She was fantastic, who was a top sales rep, who then was able to really help to lead and steer without having to really be like the head of the department. She could just kind of be in the trenches, and it was the best thing that we ever did. I think. And
yeah, I mean, it's hard, because otherwise you'll call your sales manager and go, "Hey, what'd you do today?" "Oh, I was in a planning for the Christmas party coming up in 6 months. I'm on that committee."
Some of those are fun though. So I will say some of that stuff, like some of the sales stuff is like, it's a part of the game. Like I won't. Yes, I do get that they were taken away from their productive aspect of their work. I don't know. Anyway.
I think that's probably just an extreme example, but you get my point. They'll find anything. And again, not all the sales managers that understand the value behind being in the field with their reps, coaching, like where the time needs to be spent. They'll figure out how to manage that. The ones that I see that are new up and coming sales managers, next thing you know, they're like, "Oh, I had a customer call at the last minute. I couldn't go. I missed the 2:00 ride along. And next thing you know, you're at the end of the week and you're going, hold on, man. You didn't even get in the field with your guys. How can you coach if you don't watch the game?" And I know there's AI tools for that. I'm going to catch a lot of crap for,
Yeah. So no, this is a thing though now. Like, I was actually talking to a dude yesterday who might listen to this podcast. And he was saying that he's using this app called Rillo.
Yeah.
And it's like recording there, and it's like spits out like AI afterwards. Like, I don't know. Look, do I think it's a tool that can probably help? Yeah. Do I think it's going to replace, like a true ride along? Probably not. I mean, but there's tools.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'm actually having a guy from similar to Rilla, but a different competitor. He'll be on tomorrow for windshield time. And I'm going to kind of put the ball in his court and be like, sell me on why, because there is two parts to communication that don't come up in a recording: body language, and obviously of both parties, right? And obviously, I guess you can get some tonality, but you're going to miss out on a lot of things when you're
not really going to get the tonality with AI. Here's the crazy thing. Ready? So this is you could teach this in all your sales classes. So it's like when you have a conversation with somebody and you're psychologically, you're trying to have a conversation with somebody and you're in a sales situation, right? The second you knock on that door, the amount of time that passes before somebody makes at least some small judgment on you is 1 second.
Yeah.
1 second. The amount, your communication, out of 100% of your communication, right? Ready? What percentage of that is actually your words that you're saying?
It's like 7, isn't it? Something crazy?
Yeah. It's like between 7 and 10% of what the brain computes of what you're saying, right? 70% is your body language and your appearance.
Yeah.
20% is how you're saying what you're saying. And only 7 to 10% is the words that are coming out of your mouth. So you're right. These AI tools can try to capture whatever they want, but that's bonkers. That's the way the human brain works.
Yeah.
Right. I've been thinking a lot about this. This is like just human nature, the way people are. People gravitate towards, attractive things, whatever that might be to them. Right. Attractive is different for different people, but people are listen, there's norms of this. Right. Like I can look at on my Sales Tales podcast, I can look at my posts and I can see the amount of engagement on each post that I've had. And I can tell you that there is a pattern. There's a pattern. So so what does this say to people, right? Like I will tell you right now, I hired a guy and I hired a guy. His appearance he was a handsome guy, right? But he had hair that I thought, wouldn't really go well, wouldn't mesh with customers who are in a buying situation where they're going to spend $15,000, right?
Yeah.
So it took, I didn't say anything. The world turned. I guess they came to their own realization that maybe if they wanted to go forward in the world and advance and get promotions and become a sales rep and all this other stuff, because they were the kind of a lead generator, they wanted to go into sales. And guess what? Came in, neat as a button, everything looked nice, and then like super focused, like, hey, I just finished reading this book, I'm ready to rock. And guess what? Now they're crushing it. Now they're doing really well.
Yeah.
And we live in a world where we have to be cognizant of our appearance. It's just the way that it is. But I don't know what.
No, I mean, I think to ignore that.
How the hell did we get on this tangent?
No, I think so. It's a couple things, and we can finish up on that. It's, one of my mentors says, "Do you want to be right or you want to be rich?" And that goes to that accord, right? If I have a good friend who's probably one of the top in-home sales reps. I used to work with him years ago. He's tatted, and he'll go out in 90-degree heat with an Under Armour long sleeve shirt on.
Yeah.
To run his appointments, because he's like, hey, man, if that, hey, I'm okay with it. That's who I am. I know I'm not some, whatever. But I'm not going to – I'm in their home. They're the customer. Their perception is what matters. As long as it's obviously respectful, I'm wearing long sleeves. He wants to be rich.
Number one HVAC salesman in the Northeast, essentially, or top 5. Okay. You're talking about a guy who was doing $5 million, $6 million a year in HVAC sales. I mean, this is a gangster, right?
Yeah.
Bro, tatted all the way up in that same thing. Wore long sleeve, summer, humid, bro. You're from DC. I'm from Jersey, bro.
Yeah.
It's humid, dude. It's humid. And wore a long sleeve Under Armour underneath it, just so his tats didn't show, bro. Number one sales rep. But in situations where he was hanging out with someone who was like, a tatted guy or like was a cool guy, he'd be like, yo, check this out. So you kind of pick and choose your battles as to, when you do and when you don't.
100%. One quick thing to kind of button up on the culture, because I think it's something we talked about in the group too. You know how in sales, I'm sure you've heard it in some of your training. I mean, anybody said it, right? If all things are equal in the eyes of the customer, then price becomes the determining factor, right? So if you don't differentiate, then the only thing that they're going to choose on is price. Yeah. Somebody said it years ago. I don't know who, but I've heard it. Makes sense, right? If you don't show me any reason to think that you're better or different, then my only determining factor is price.
Yeah.
I flip that looking at an employee. If the employee doesn't see anything different with working for you and your culture and your company, then the only determining factor on whether they're going to come, go, stay, whatever, is that W-2, is that 1099, is that pay stub.
Oh my gosh. Dude, if I had like a buzzer, I would ring it right now.
That's kind of it. And then if you look at like in terms of, I don't even know, I got it somewhere, but it makes sense, is, the idea behind culture. And I don't know why sometimes I just got so many things going through my head, but, basically where it's something where you're like, we want the best from you. We trust you're going to bring the best, give the best. And then the last one, though, is then we expect the best. But the first two are, about the company and you. And I just think that's, like you said, it's, you can't play the game. So you have to have people, you have to have players.
Dude, I love the way you said that too, because it is, if you treat your employees like they are tallies on a spreadsheet, then they're going to treat their employer like tallies on a spreadsheet.
Yeah.
Listen, man, I'm on fire right now. There's things I want to say about, things. You know what? And I love to use this forum as like sort of a diary of sorts. And I've had like, engagement of, in some weeks, 20,000 people. Right. So
that's like awesome.
So yeah, well, it is, but it's also, I'm getting to a point where, I'm still a professional in the field. So I also have to make sure I somewhat guard what I say, because I don't want to, but I can speak in general terms and just say some organizations, you're that tally. You're just the tally mark on the spreadsheet. And you know what's going to happen until any organization learns that you can't be the tally. Okay. Those tallies are people. Those people produce the results. And you probably won't even know how great you could have been had you just been a better leader, had you just been a better company, had you just treated people with X, Y, Z, whatever it is, bro. And it's funny, we talked about core values before, bro. I created core values, but you know what they were? And like, I get it. Like, it's cheesy, but if you do like 4 of them, not like 15 of them.
Yeah.
You do like 4 and you live by them. So one of them was this, and this does not really fall under like do the right thing, like you were saying before. One of them was communicate effectively. And that's great. It's not really do the right thing. And, it's really about, hey, make sure you're delivering the information to your prospect or your customer in a manner that makes you a decision enabler and helps them to get from point A to point B. That's really the core, the crux of it. So I will say that I agree with you. Sometimes you go into these organizations, I got all these core values on the way, and you don't believe them for a fucking minute. You don't live them. You don't breathe them. You have them up on the wall because at one point in time, you thought it was the thing to do. Well, you got to live, eat, breathe, and sleep those things. And yeah.
By the way, I like to always raise my hand in these situations. I'm guilty. I'm not, sometimes it sounds like, hey man, I'm here on the bench preaching. I work at it every day because it is a challenge, right? Where some days you're like, okay, we can't sacrifice the means to get the end. And next thing you know, you're like, we just sacrificed the means to get the result. Like, damn it. And it's an everyday battle. So I mean, just in case people watch this and are like, yeah, I battle with it every day. That's just the things that I practiced on and I'm trying to instill and live and believe. But it's hard. It's hard.
Let me ask you a question. So when, in your experiences, okay, let's talk about with a customer, potentially with a customer, maybe it could be an employee. I'd like to hear that. What is the most meaningful experience you've had? Maybe it was a sales call, maybe it was a customer, maybe it was an employee that lives with you today, that you carry with yourself pretty much everywhere you go.
I'll do it with a customer. So we do, a bunch of companies in a group do it, but we participate in something that's called Bass for the Brave. And it's every company donates one complete bathroom remodel for a veteran in need in 18 different markets around the country. And we do it on Veterans Day. So we actually crash and surprise them. So it's what happens is the way it comes about is usually we met with them during that year and they couldn't buy. And we make a note like they couldn't afford it, couldn't get financing, whatever, but they are definitely a veteran. They are definitely in need, like whether it's disability, what have you. And that that's big to me because, as you've heard, I've mentioned my dad. My dad was in Vietnam and then was in the Marine Corps. Never really talked much about it, but ultimately his exposure to Agent Orange was what ultimately, I mean, it was 35, 40, whatever it was years later, maybe even longer. He lived a good life, but he lived a life that was definitely jaded from that exposure. So it's big to me because I'm not in the military, but like, so it's just my little way of kind of remembering him every year. So that's, and some of those, we get their stories too, because we make.
What was something specific? Like who
so
was the guy?
Yeah. So we had a guy this year who hasn't safely showered on his own in 5 years. So he has to wait for either a caretaker or a family member, which both were hour plus away, to come over and help him in showering. So when you can't even live with dignity, right? Because you can't
hop over the thing. So you installed a bathroom for him, like one of those like walk-in.
Yeah. No threshold, walk in, completely 100% accessible. And just to see it in his eyes, you can't make that up, right? Like you can't, that emotion that guy had, and you're just sitting there going, geez, oh, flip, man. Holy crap. And so that one really tugs for me because at the end, I was the one, well, I shouldn't say it. My siblings were helping too. My father had one part of it was he had neuropathy, so he had no feeling in his legs. So he was 200 pounds of dead weight, and I'm getting him in the shower. And I'll never forget, man, he turned around to me, my father, and he was embarrassed, right? He's 75. Let's say this is 4 years of late 30s, right at the time. He didn't want his son seeing him naked. And you know what I mean? Like there's dignity involved, and he didn't, but he had to because my mom couldn't pick him up. So that was the hardest part at the end, was just like, man, you got it. And I watched it with these other ones we did this past year. So we do it every Veterans Day, November-ish, whatever that day is. And it's really, I mean, they're going to the right people, the ones that are truly in need for it. And I think there's 14 companies, 18 different states, and we do it all at once, same day, all at the same time. And it's insanity. It's awesome. It's so cool. So that's, there's all these people in our industry that give back to Habitat for Humanity, and that's all great too. But this one, like, you're going direct to the source and you're saying, hey, we know you need it because you met with us, but for whatever reason, status quo, financing, whatever, right? All those reasons that people just never end up doing something, we get back on the horn with them, make sure they're still in need of it. And I'll tell you what kills you, man. We had one market this year. We had a guy pegged for it, a family. And we called to do the, maybe a month or so in advance to just verify, like, hey, this is the whole program. We already told you about it, but like, you're the winner. He passed away. I was like, gosh, dog it, man. And like I said, the dignity, man, just to be scared. How could you go to war at 18, like for my father, Vietnam, and then be scared at 75 for your life trying to take a shower? Like literally shaking. And I'm like, and then you realize how, I always joke, you realize how 200 pounds, man, of dead weight is. I used to call my brothers and be like, holy cow, man, he's a big boy still. Wow. So that's the one that sticks to me. I mean, there's tons. You help out people all the time and with things, but that happens every
clearly
year.
That story stuck out to you the most. I'm sure if you thought about it, I sneak that question up on everybody. So, everybody gets that question. I have a question though.
You know what I love best? Hold on. I do want to give you one. When I was a sales rep, I'll never forget my first sale ever was in one of the worst parts of town in Baltimore, Maryland, which you don't have to look far to know that's not great. And I sold that job because I reminded myself before going in that door, we used to always say, like, just a trigger, sell a demo, nothing more, nothing less, right? Just give them the show. And this is years ago. Some people have changed what that means, but like, hey, they're having me out here. If they're willing to give me their time, I'm going to give them my best. Back to do your best. And I could tell early on that they had a need, easy, and they had other companies out. And every other company, you could tell, because I naturally would ask, hey, did you meet with anybody else? And they're like, yeah, well, that's a great company. Is there any reason that anything in particular they did not? And they weren't like, oh, it wasn't the product. Like, they just like, nah. And I'm like, oh man, you can just tell these guys shortcutted it. One guy I know for a fact did, because it was just a number on the back of a business card, when I know for a fact they do a full quote, right? So I just doubled down, man. I spent evening lead, never forget it. I spent all night with them. I'll never forget, I laid off price. And we ended up doing, like, they were like, measure it all. I'm like, okay, whatever. All the windows, all the doors, everything. Bay windows, all the stuff. And they were like, I'll never forget, it was a son and a mom. But I don't think the mom, they were older, but they got, so anyway, she looks at me and she's like, you take a credit card. And I'm almost done. I'm like, I know that's bad, but I'm like, yeah, of course. And she goes, looks at her son. She's like, go up there and grab that out of the bedroom. Comes back down, strokes the credit card, to the point where it was such a bad area. The son said, hey man, let me walk you out to your car when we finished. And you just know for a fact that let's just say three other companies came to that customer and didn't give them, again, focused what we talk about, focused on outcome instead of process, judged it, act on that judgment. And I can tell you one thing, you're going to miss 100% of shots you don't take. Wayne Gretzky wasn't wrong. I'm not saying I was going to sell it, but I knew I had no shot of selling it if I didn't do it.
Yeah, it's about effort. And I think a lot of people prejudge. This year is really eye-opening for me because of the amount of business we did in economically distressed areas. But I think everybody who is a true professional typically does not prejudge and will typically walk away with jobs, and then like that other people won't. And then what will happen is people be like, oh, look at his numbers, they're so good. It'd be like, you know what? Because he does the things that you don't do.
Yeah.
He goes the extra step where you don't, right?
Yeah.
He'll do the full presentation where you're lazy. Like, bro, it's not a secret, right? Like, isn't it amazing that the harder I work, the luckier I get?
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm so he retired now, so maybe people won't hate on him as much. I'm a big Nick Saban fan, not necessarily an Alabama football fan. No, I don't have any ties necessarily, but he talks about this one. He's got a laundry list of great quotes, but his biggest one is never let the opponent determine your effort. And a lot of people used to get mad at him because he'd be running down the sideline. They're up 57-2 against Louisiana Monroe, right? Or some JUCO. And a guy misses the block and he's losing his mind on the guy. And they'd be like, Nick, why are you going crazy on this guy? You're up 57-2. He goes, because if I don't, and we don't stay disciplined to the process, we're going to make that same mistake against LSU in the Sugar Bowl, and it's going to cost us.
Yeah. Great people think differently than other people. They're never complacent. Let me ask you a question. I got to ask you a question. I love this topic, and I'm thinking this is a crossover. I'm going to just present something on the screen here that I saw of yours, and I was wondering, like, what is this? What did you mean by this? Repetition is not a form of punishment. You posted this the other day in your in-home sales group. What do you mean?
So how, like, as a kid, I always remember when I see a chalkboard where it's written like that, I think of Bart Simpson in The Simpsons. In the beginning of the episode, they show him writing, I will not yell at my teacher.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And I grew up in a school that had us write out those things, right? I guess as a form, but it was a form of punishment. It was stay after school and write 100 times on the chalkboard that I will not call out in class. And it's, now, instead of it, same thing with like discipline. Discipline isn't punishment, right? It's repetition makes automatic. Not makes perfect. It makes automatic. It's what you're going to do, especially when the situation hits. What are you going to fall back on? And it's whatever you've been repeating. And that's why the other thing, if you take it back to like this lead in the bad part of town, if I shortcut that lead, and then I go to my next lead, which is just whatever, something else is wrong. And now I shortcut that one. I won't recognize what is a good or a bad opportunity if it hit me in the face on the third one. And now instead of it being let's just say a 10-step sales methodology, my sales manager comes out and joins me, and I go, hey man, I'm doing everything I was taught to do. And be like, really? Because you only did 3 steps and we're out of the house in 31 minutes. with no sales, and you don't recognize it. So the idea behind repetition is, I mean, and I've posted this in the group before, and you brought it up a minute ago, bringing professionalism to sales, especially in-home sales, right? That this is a legit profession. If you don't want to make it a career, no one does no one stays with companies 25 years, gets a gold watch and retires. Like our parents did it maybe, like some, but even that started to get a little wonky. But still, I can still treat it like a profession because the skills that I'm going to learn selling in the home can translate to any endeavor. But we have so many people in the industry that treat it, I like to say, I'm in this word as a hustle, right? Or it's I'm going to get what the league gives me versus, hold on, man. Like, what value are you if all you can do is sell to the quality of the lead level? Like, I want guys and gals that can take as we work on their mental capacity and go to another level. Show me how you sell show me how you sell a tough one.
Yeah. It's like you can sell air conditioning. It's like you could sell you could sell air conditioning in Texas in 105-degree weather. Congratulations, you're really good. I knew guys that couldn't sell a lick in the off season, and then got guys like me who 70% of my leads, I sold all the laydowns too, but 70% of my leads came from when there was no weather, right? Yeah. So it was like you had to form a process. I love that mindset. I think you and I could probably talk about that for eons.
The other thing I'll say on it, and I don't want to go down that path at all, but as I share with you my background and where I still to this day, I don't have any regret. I just mindset, true mental toughness inhibited my natural skill to be a professional baseball player, hands down. I mean, I'm 6'5", I'm left-handed, I threw hard, I had everything natural, but I couldn't get here. And the difference in baseball, same thing in sales here. The difference between a professional, an MLB player, and a D1 college player is consistency.
Yeah. Consistency is the mark of a champion. 100%. It's also mindset. These athletes have sports psychiatrists that they go to see like continuously. And think about this. Sonny Gray is probably going to be up for the Cy Young this year. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm a big baseball fan. Okay.
Good.
Sonny Gray, I'm sure you're an Orioles fan. All right.
Nats.
You're a Nats fan. Okay. So before the Nats were there, were you an Orioles fan or did you just not root for baseball?
No, I was. I definitely was. Yeah.
Phil, you were a Phillies fan? All right.
No. I definitely was an Orioles fan, but we were poor. We couldn't go to any of those games. I don't even think we had cable.
Yeah. But that was nice because baseball was on regular TV. Baseball, you just turn on baseball on regular TV, and whatever market you were in, you could watch some baseball. So, anyway, my point is Sonny Gray could not pitch. Was a Yankee for like a year.
Yeah.
Could not pitch. He was like a 2.0 ERA outside of Yankee Stadium, but the pressure and the press from New York, he could not pitch in New York. Is that bonkers?
I can't say it is just because of Dylan. Look at Rick Ankiel. That's who I played with, right? I had I had same problems. It didn't happen on the grand stage like his, but I got to a point where I couldn't control where the ball was going to go.
Oh, wow.
Now his happened in the middle of a playoff run, but it's a very real thing. And the bio, like we talked about, you mentioned in the beginning, the doctor that I work with, I've known him since I was 4 years old, but he's a sports psychologist to MLB, NHL, NBA, real big ones, PGA. But if you look at baseball and you look at what we do in selling in the home, it's a game of statistical failure. So you can hit 300 and be a Hall of Famer, but that means you failed 7 times.
Yeah.
How you handle those failures.
You and I use the exact same. We use the exact same analogies. Yeah.
I told Doc, call him Doc. I told Doc, I said, Doc, I'm not letting this happen to me again. And he's like, this was years ago. He's, what are you talking about? And I was like, it's not sports, it's sales. He goes, well, sports psychology is really performance psychology. He goes, I work with chess players. I work with board members. Like, it's the ability to perform consistently when the shit hits the fan, when things aren't ideal, right? when it isn't laid out in gravy, or when you don't feel great. One of the trainers I used to work with, he goes, how do you have a good shitty day? Because if you always have to feel good to play good, you ain't going to make it very far here, son. And
That's
I'm like,
a really good point.
man.
I spend a lot of time trying to get my mind right about everything in my life. I literally do everything I possibly can. I'm talking about vitamins, supplements, like everything. And you know what? Like that's a part of the game, man. I mean, even working out, the whole deal, like it's amazing the amount of effort I spend to try to keep my mind right. And I wonder if there is, okay, let me ask you this before because we're going to wrap it up pretty soon, but what's a good tip for people who, like me, are trying to keep their mind straight all the time? And look, like you said, you're going to have bad days, you're going to have good days. What's one silver bullet that you could give?
I'll give you one. So I'll give you what everybody probably knows it's called, but I'll take it one step further. Have you heard of E plus R equals O?
No.
Okay. Well, some of your guests have, and that's, the original was all the way back to the Holocaust days, but then I think Jack Canfield kind of labeled it. But same concept. Event plus response equals outcome. In sales, in life, you don't control the event. The only thing you have control of is your response, which is going to not guarantee the outcome, but it's going to influence the outcome, right? So when something bad happens, I'm not a big fan of, positive thinking, like with our guys, like, hey, I got a no-show. Hey, just positive thinking, man. Sorry you drove 100 miles out there. No, that sucks. However, I get to choose now. After I do that, I get to choose my response. I have two ways to go. I can respond by calling every other rep on the team the whole way back to the office, bitching about the call center not confirming a lead, or I can never bring that up again. Once I'm done resulting it and doing whatever the company requires of me, I know that's now in the past. Now it's a so what, so what, now what mentality. So it's all in your response. No event in life is good. It's neutral. Everything that happens to you is neutral. It's your response that either makes it positive or makes it negative. And this is huge in selling because, again, you're not going to, if all you do is perform well when the event is the way you want it, like, seriously, there's a dime a dozen of those people out there. I want the guy or gal that says, hey, man, this stinks, truthfully, but I get to choose my response. And I know that can influence the outcome. May not, And the other thing, I'll tell you one more thing that I love. It ties into this. Nothing is, and everybody knows the line, but nothing's guaranteed, right? Death and taxes. But where people stop that line, and it's really critical, and this is what Doc has worked with me for years on, is all you're doing is influencing the probability of a successful outcome. So if I say repetition, like you said, repetition is not a punishment. All I'm doing when I'm doing my repetition, when I'm doing my rehearsal, when I'm doing my role play, when I'm doing any of this, is I'm improving the probability of a successful outcome. That's all we can do. Nothing's guaranteed. I don't care, because you can go and hit a home run. You can be in front of Mr. and Mrs. Jones and you can give the best presentation in the world. And they can look at you and go, Joe, no. Right?
Yeah.
But hey, I did what I could. My response, what I can actually control, I did it to the best of my ability. And I'm going to, again, some I'm just not going to get. It's not guaranteed. It's still the homeowner's choice. But everything that I do in response to that lead is going to either increase my probability of success or decrease it.
Yeah. It's funny because when you said that, I thought about, how, and I'm glad that I now have like a good acronym, and I have heard that before, but I guess I'd never used it. But yeah, so it's like, yeah, man, I got a quote for, like so much less, or, we really just getting quotes, man. Come on. We don't need a whole thing. Like, and I always teach my guys like, okay, absolutely. 100%, like, sure. Let me help you out, and then you can start to dig further and ask questions, but you just gotta, right? Like, yeah, absolutely. Like your response, like, you should be right. You should, oh gosh, this guy, he's a shopper. He's going to shop all around. Like, bro, half the people you're going to see are going to shop around everywhere, right? Get used to it. Like, okay, yeah, sure, absolutely. Is there anything specific you were looking for? Or, I'll tell you what, let me go do my job here. I'll do some measurements. So it's just like you let it, you're a duck. You got to just duck it, right? The duck just lets it roll, right? Go through your process, gain agreements, make sure and see if you can find common ground. I mean, that's really what it comes down to, right? Like the best salespeople find somewhere where you have a solution, they have a problem, you've solved that problem, you've made that work, and maybe it's a defense mechanism. Maybe they're putting up their, they've got a pact, right? Well, we're not buying anything, or we're definitely going to go with the cheapest quote, or whatever their mindset is, right? And so part of that whole process is just breaking down those barriers. And I love this. So you're right, so it is a lot of that has to do with your attitude, because your response is definitely, if they see you're frustrated, if they see that they shook you or whatever it is, like you lost your confidence, you lost your footing. I mean,
100%.
Yeah.
The fact that we're human, it's one of the biggest difference of the human brain is we have the ability to respond. Unlike if I stepped on a snake, they're gonna react and bite me. Mammals don't have that ability. So theirs is more of a reaction, which is way different than responding. Responding is I'm in control, I'm regulated. And like you said, reacting is body language goes to shit. Even though they're like, I didn't see anything bad. I said, no problem. I would still talk them through. Yeah, but your body language went like this.
Yeah, your body language said, no problem, bro.
Yeah. That's
no
reaction.
problem, dude.
Responding, the ability to respond, it's very much rehearsed.
Joe, I don't know about you.
Pressure's on.
Maybe snakes react and they bite you, man, but they don't bite me, bro. They don't bite me.
Well, hey, yeah, I don't know.
They go to bite me. They're like, whoa, wait a minute. Hang on a second here. This guy's got a really good attitude and mindset. I'm not going to bite this guy.
Yeah, but that's our difference, man. We get to choose how to respond. I swear someday, I don't know if you remember back in the early 90s when Clinton ran for office, he had some campaign slogan that said, it's the economy, stupid. I'm going to write a book that's going to be called It's Your Response, Stupid. Like, you want to know why you're seeing the things you are in your life? A lot of it's tailored to how you responded to the events you were faced with.
You're right. Your response greatly dictates the results in your life, right? You have the choice to respond. John Maxwell talks about this too. So it's like, it's like your response can really dictate. There's also a little book. I thought it was New Age when I read it. I thought like, oh wow, this is a New Age book here, man. Ooh, my mind is blowing. New Age. You know what book it was? It's called As a Man Thinketh. And you know when it was written?
1800s?
Like 1902.
Yeah.
And I thought like there was some New Age way of thinking, and I'm like, ooh, this is a good book. And I'm like, no. And it's literally about how you think, and what you think determines literally your entire outcome of life. And there's also the whole thought of like law of attraction, which I'm very interested in, because I think there's even I don't know if you're a biblical guy, but I think there's even like there's a script, there's an interesting thought of like how that works, right? Like how the law of attraction works. It's like all of a sudden, like you get a sales rep in a house, or, you get like, you're trying to accomplish something, and it's like, you get this guy with great attitude, giving his all, talking to everybody else on the team. And then the next thing you know, like boom, 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 boom. Like he's super successful. He gets all the sales and he gets all the success. And you're like, wow, where did this guy come from? And it's like, I don't know, this guy's just good. He just walks around giving good vibes to everybody, and he's attracting. And I've noticed that about myself. I've noticed that about myself when I'm in a good frame of mind. I used to walk into a house, and I was happy, maybe I hadn't had a fight with my wife or whatever it was. Like, it was like, okay, cool. Like I didn't have a fight. We didn't fight today. Or like, I'm kidding. Like we don't fight that much. I'm just saying like in general, like, or like, oh, my kids actually cleaned their room, or, my, something good happened. And I walk in, and the next thing they'll be like, here's a check, just go ahead, do the install.
Yeah, man. So, what you focus on, you're going to find. The other side to finish up on this is huge. Is the emotion side of it, like you're talking about. Law of attraction gets, only thing that it misses out on a lot of the times is the emotion of the vibration. And that's like you're saying, the good vibes. If your listeners and friends want to do one great exercise, takes 2 seconds. think back to the best performance you've ever had in the home. You probably can remember it like clockwork. And think how you performed. What were you thinking about? How were you feeling? What happened before the appointment? What was going on in your life? What was going on during the appointment? Like, think all of those things. Then compare it to the absolute worst performance you've ever had. Not the customer side, the things you control. Your worst performance. How were you thinking? How were you feeling? How were you, what were you thinking? And I guarantee you what you're going to see, the difference between the two is mindset related.
Yeah, it's your attitude. And they say that with great teams too, like great sports teams that succeed. It's not necessarily like, yeah, there's talent, but look, okay, you're a baseball guy, right? Look at the San Diego Padres last year. Look at the New York Mets last year. Highest payrolls in baseball. Didn't even make the playoffs.
Yeah.
I mean, they not even close, right? So it takes more attitude, coaching. There's a lot that goes into it.
Yeah. So a lot of times when I say mindset to guys, they think it's more of that side of things, where I like to look at the psychology. We just look at this performance and psychological principles that you can apply.
What you focus on, you're going to find. I like that. That's a good line. What you focus on, you're going to find. Yeah.
The other thing that's great, since you're a baseball guy,
mm-hmm.
and we can finish on this, cause I gotta jump too. Man, I hope this was good for everybody that's listening, but one of my favorite things.
It might suck. Who knows? We'll find out. I don't know.
That's true. They could be.
See how many streams you get.
The Pete Rose, all-time hit leader.
Incredible.
Right?
Yep.
Hardest thing probably to do in sports is to hit a baseball.
It is. There's a video on it now, and it shows it. It is the hardest thing to do in sports. Yep.
So he took something that was extremely complex, and to ensure he wasn't thinking. So I always tell our reps, when you cross the threshold to the home, you got to stop thinking and trust your training. So now that's not easy to do, but Pete Rose talked about this. How did you break the record? Well, I set the goal, but he goes, but every at bat, I had a trigger. See the ball, hit the ball. That was his reminder every time. See the ball, hit the ball. He took something as complex as hitting a fastball to, I need to see it first and then hit it. Which, again, it just helps you focus.
Yeah, my son was in Little League. We used to say that all the time. But the problem is they confuse everything with like, shortest way to the thing. And, so it's like crazy.
That's a whole nother talk on how coaching, even in sales, we interfere. We interfere. You got a rep in the home who's thinking about 30 different things at once, when at that point, you got to, again, trust your training and go.
Yeah. So it is true though, but it's all like, it's these little tiny things that all culminate into like, okay, when I'm in this situation, I know what to do. So you do have to rely on your instincts. Joe, let me ask you a question.
Wait, real quick. You know how the only way you can be able to do that instinctual is through rehearsal. If you need to think in the home about how to respond, I mean, there can be some one-offs, but like you want to get it to the point where, just like a hitter, they don't have any time to respond. They got to
like, I got to talk to my dog about this. Like, how do you respond to that?
Yeah. Sorry, we're gonna wrap up talk all day. I love this stuff.
No, I know this has actually been really fun. Joe, how can people find you and or anything else you want to end with?
God, no, I mean, you can on Facebook. I think it's Joseph Downey, but in home, just search the Facebook group. I mean, there's no
in-home sales. In-home sales professionals is the group.
You don't get spammed. I don't collect it. Somebody asked me, when are you monetizing this? Never. That's not
right. Here's the group, guys. In-home sales professionals. And I don't plug any really, but this group is great. It's just a lot of great people posting some. By the way, this doesn't look like you at all. It's a lot of great people posting a lot of great things. I mean, even this post right here that you posted on enthusiasm. I mean, just so here, so great. Appreciate you, man.
Yeah, man. I'm stoked. I'm glad we connected. That's the cool part about social media these days.
For sure. Thanks, really appreciate you, man. And I am going to just end with some announcements and then yeah, cool, man. Thank you so much.
Thanks, man.
Okay, awesome. So a couple of announcements. One, Our next episode, I'm going to have the Trent Parker. I don't know if you guys know who he is. Yeah, you've probably seen his videos. He makes these hilarious like HVAC, and like he's a cop, and like he's funny. He's got millions and millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of streams and likes, and they're all like parodies. He's an HVAC like guy himself, and like he's kind of funny. He just does it like he's like plays this like kind of white, like this trashy kind of guy who just anyway. Check him out. His name's Trent Parker. His actual Instagram and social media handle is Mr. Fat Cheeto. So Mr. Fat Cheeto, super, super cool guy. Still trying to work out what's going on with Kenny Brooks. He's like super famous, so I don't know when the heck that's happening. And then I've got a whole bunch of other cool guests coming on. So thank you guys so much, and we will catch you next week.